Hello, my dear student. Today we will take our strategic management course for fourth year English program, management department. This is our second lecture. Today we will discuss in more detail chapter 4 type of strategies. Our learning objective will be to know what we mean by long-term objective, the characteristic and the benefit of objective, financial versus strategic objective, type of strategies, and how different companies apply SWOT analysis. Our first objective is to know what we mean by long-term objective. Long-term objective represents the result expected from accomplishing certain strategies. So, the long-term objective represents the outcomes that you will obtain according to accomplishing your strategies. And also strategy represents the action to be taken to accomplishing long-term objective. So the strategy represents a tool that a company will use to achieve their long-term objective. So strategies represent a tool that a company will use to achieve their long-term objective. So the strategy represents the tool for accomplishing long-term objective, and the long-term objective represented the result or the outcomes resulted from accomplishing certain strategy. The time frame for strategy and objective usually between 2 to 5 years. And you should know that organization without determining their long-term objective, so it will be driven aimlessly toward unknown end. So for successful organization or for organization to be successful, it should know and determine their long-term objective to know their result expected from the accomplishing of certain strategies. Also, long-term objectives are needed at the corporate, divisional, and functional level of organization. So at different level of your organization, you will need long-term objectives. So you will need to know our result from accomplishing certain strategies, and also they are important measure for managerial performance. This figure will show you a comparison between both large and small companies. At larger companies, we will find 4 level, and at small company, we will find 3 level. For large company, we will have 4 level. The first level is a corporate level, and it will be represented by the chief executive officer, and divisional level represented by division president or executive vice president. And for functional level, it will be represented by function. For example, finance, marketing, research and development, manufacturing, information system, and human resource management. And for the operational level, it will be represented by plant manager, sales manager, production, and department manager. On the other hand, for the small company, it will be represented by 3 levels. For the first level, it will be for the company level, for the owner or the president. The second level, it will be for the functional level, finance, marketing, research, development, manufacturing, and so on. And for operational level, it will be represented by plant manager, sales manager, production, and department manager. So if you would like to make a summary for the slide that we have shown, that long-term objective, it will take a duration from 2 to 5 years old, and it represents your result for you accomplished from accomplishing your certain strategy. And the strategy is represented a main tool that you will use to achieve your long-term objectives. This table shows you how the different organizational level, corporate, division, and functional level uses the combination between long-term objective and annual objective. As we have said before at chapter 1, what we mean by annual objective is to have you accomplish the objective for only 1 year. So the corporate level make a combination between both long-term and annual objective. It's about 75% based on long-term objectives and 25% based on annual objective. But for division level, it depends on both equally, 50% for long-term and 50% for annual objective. And for functional level, It depends mainly on annual objective about 75 and the 25 long-term objective. So we can make a summary for what we have said. For corporate level, it depends mainly on long-term objective. And for division, it depends equally for both together. And for function, it depends mainly on annual objectives. We should know what are the characteristics of objectives. To say that objective is a very good one, it should be quantitative, it should be measurable, you should know how to measure it, it should be realistic, understandable, challenging, hierarchical, obtainable, and congruent with organizational unit. So to say this objective is a good one, you should know how to measure it. It should be written in a numbers. It should be challenging but also attainable. So each objective should also be associated with a timeline. So it should be, you should determine the time period you will achieve this objective. Also, you can state it your objective in your organization, such as a growth in assets, growth in sales, profitability, market share, the degree and the nature of vertical integration, earning per share, and social responsibility, and so on. So after we saying what we mean by the objective long term and the annual objective and the characteristic of objective to be good, you should know now what are the benefits of putting the objective. First of all, the objective will provide you a direction, and you should know what are the main purpose of your organization. What are the main objectives that your organization will attend to accomplish? Allow synergy. Also, it assists in evaluation, establish priority, reduce uncertainty, minimize conflict. It also aids your organization to make a good allocation of their resource. And also, objectives serve as a standard by which individual, group, department, division, and the entire organization can be evaluated. So, if we, as we have said before, that there is no organization can be exist without having a clear objective. So this represented the main benefit for applying the objective, or for your company to have has an objective. First of all, it provides you a direction. It helps you to make a good allocation of resources, and also it may be serve as a standard by which individual, group, department, and division, and the entire organization can be evaluated according to it. So it may be used as a tool for making an evaluation for the performance of your company. Here, there is a comparison between both financial and strategic objective. These two types of objective are commonly used in organization. First, for financial objective, it include all associated with growth in revenue, or you would like to make a growth in earning, or larger profit margin, or greater return on investment. For example, if you'd like to achieve a financial growth, if you'd like to exceed $10 million in the next 10 years, or to increase revenue by 10% annually, or to decrease expenses by 5%. So in this case, it will be a financial strategic objective. So if I give you an example and asked you to determine the type of objective, so in this, if I say anything like this, so you will choose financial objectives. But on the other hand, for the strategic objective, it will include that it will represent it as a long term, and it should be aligned with your mission and vision, and it will be like you would like to achieve a quicker on-time delivery than other customers, shorter design to market times than other customers, lower cost, higher product quality, geographic coverage, achieving technological leadership, and so on. So if you like to achieve a long-term objective, and it should be aligned with your mission and vision, and you would like to achieve more competitive advantage more than your competitors, so in this case it will be strategic objective. But for financial objective, you should put your objective expressed in numbers. You should put numbers in your objectives. And these two types of objective, both financial and strategic, are most commonly used in organization. Also, both financial and strategic objectives should include both annual and long-term performance target. And also, the best way to sustain competitive advantage over the long run is to achieve the strategic objective. So if you'd like to achieve a sustainable competitive advantage, is to achieve an economic value larger than the economic value of other competitors for a long period, the best way is to achieve your strategic objectives. But financial objective can be best met by focusing first on achieving strategic objectives. So we can make a summary for the two slides that I have explained. That if you would like to achieve a competitive advantage for a long period, the best way is to achieve your strategic objective. And also, if you would like to be successful in achieving your financial objective, you should first achieve your strategic objective, and after that you achieve the financial objective. So the result of the successful achievement of your strategic objective, it will be the achievement of financial objective. So accomplishing a strategic objective, it will lead to the accomplishing of financial objectives. So financial objective should be expressed in numbers, but strategic objective, it should be aligned with your vision and the mission, and it should be expressed in numbers, and also it should be achieved after your successful achievement of a strategic objective. But a strategic objective, it depends mainly in making a comparison between your company and the other competitors. It depends mainly on how you can gain a competitive advantage. How can you have a more economic value than other competitors? In this slide, I will show you the different type of strategies. The book make a different type or a different classification of type of strategies. There are 11 types of strategies. The first one is a forward integration, 2 backward integration, 3 horizontal integration, 4 market penetration, 5 market development, 6 product development, 7 related diversification, 8 unrelated diversification, retrenchment, divestiture, and liquidation. Here there is a brief summary or a brief definition for each of these strategies. The first one, for forward integration, is gaining ownership or increased control over distributor or retailer. And the backward integration is taking ownership or increased control of a firm supplies. And for horizontal integration is taking ownership or increased control over competitors. So after saying this, the three represented the different types of integration. The first one is a forward integration. So you will like to gaining ownership and increase your market share by focusing more on your customers. But backward integration, it focuses more on raw materials. So in this case, you would like to make a increased control of a firm supplies. For example, Starbucks purchased a coffee farm. So they purchased a coffee farm to try to make a control for their suppliers and supplies, to try to have their own raw materials. But for horizontal integration, seeking ownership or increase the control over competitors. So they would like to make a control for their competitors, for their other competitors. So if you would like to apply one of this, if you would like to apply a forward integration, so you will make a control over your customers. Backward integration, so you will make a control over the suppliers. And if you apply horizontal integration, you will make a control over your competitors. The fourth type is a market penetration. You can apply it if you'd like to increase your market share by presenting for your present product or service in a present market through greater marketing efforts. So if you'd like to try to increase your market share by applying a huge advertising campaign, so you can make a market penetration. And also market development, you can apply market development by introducing your present product or service into a new geographic area. So for example, Gap opened its first 5 store in China, so they use their present product and service actually, but they try to explore it and to provide it into a new geographic area. So this is represents the first 5 types of your strategy you can depend on it. So but other book classify the integration into one type, but here it's represented by 3 types: forward, backward, and horizontal. It does not represent a matter. Our concentration here is to know what we mean by each one of them. So forward, you will make a control over your distributor or retailer or customers. Backwards, you will make a control over your supplies. Horizontal, you will make a control over your competitors. Market penetration, you'd like to increase your market share by making an increased effort. And the market development is represented by introducing your present product and service into a new geographic area. Then product development. What we mean by product development, it means that you would like to increase your sales by improving present product or service or developing a new one. So you have 2 ways to make a product development. The first one is to improve your present product and service or to develop a new one. Then related diversification. So according to diversification, you will have 2 types: the related and unrelated. For related diversification, so you'd like to try to make a variation of your product related to what you introduce. First of all, adding new but related product or service. For example, Facebook acquired the text messaging firm WhatsApp for $19 billion. So they will provide service that's related to what they actually introduce. But for unrelated diversification, adding a new unrelated product and service. For example, Kroger is represented a grocery store. Now they presented a cooking meals and becoming as a restaurant. So in this case, they provide a new service, but this service represented unrelated to their product and service. So according to diversification, you will have 2 options. You will be related or unrelated. Related, adding a new product, but related product or service, related to what you actually provide. But for unrelated, you will adding a new, but not unrelated product or service. Retrenchment is represented that regrouping through cost and asset reduction to reverse declining sales and profit. So you will make regrouping or assigning group by cost and asset reduction to try to solve the problem of declining your sales and profit. So in this example, established closed 25 stores and reduced by 50% of the size of the other stores. So this means that if your company face a problem and their sales and profit become decreased, so in this case they will try to find a solution, and this solution, in this case the solution will be to close much stores and try to decrease their cost. Divestiture is to make a selling a division or a part of an organization. By selling a division or a partition of your organization. And liquidation, it means that selling all of the company asset. So you will sell all of the company asset and try to get and take the money. So after we have said there are 11 strategies the companies can depend on it. So it can depend on diversification or makeup market development or a product development or a liquidation, or it can make an integration. So in the next lecture inshallah I will show you how can you select which of these strategies or two or more strategies according to your SWOT analysis. If you'd like to select the best strategy that cope with your organization, you should depend mainly on your SWOT analysis. As we have said before, type of strategies, we said it at chapter 1, and we said that strategic choice fall into two large categories. The first one is the business level strategies, and the second one is the corporate level strategy. The first one, the business level, are action firms take to gain competitive advantage in a single market or a single industry. So you should focus here on a single market or a single industry. But for corporate level strategies, are action firms take to gain competitive advantage by operating in multiple markets or multiple industries. So if you would like to focus mainly on business level strategies, so your firm should aim to gain their competitive advantage in a single market or in a single industry. But you will select corporate level strategies if your firm aim to gain a competitive advantage if your company operate in a multiple markets or in a multiple industries. Here we will make a discussion for business level strategies in more details, and after that we will make a detailed discussion for corporate level strategies. First, business level strategies, it consists of both two types, the cost leadership, and second, for product differentiation. Cost leadership focus mainly on gaining a competitive advantage by reducing your cost to be below other competitors. So in this case, you will have a competitive advantage according to your cost, and your cost should be lower than other, or should be the lowest, and should be below other than other competitors. So you should also focus when you would like to try to make your cost to be lower and lower. You should also focus on the quality, because if you would like to focus mainly on reducing your cost, it might be in some cases it will be has a bad effect on your quality. Also, however, firm pursuing a cost leadership strategy focuses much of its effort on keeping its cost low. So, if you'd like to select the strategy of cost leadership, so you will try to make your cost to be lower than or the lowest than other competitors. The second type of business level strategies is product differentiation. As we have said before, that business level strategies depend on when your company then or like to gain a competitive advantage when it does its action in a single market or in a single industry. The second type of business level strategy is product differentiation. So is a business strategy where a firm attempt to gain a competitive advantage by increasing the perceived value of their product or service relative to the perceived value of other firm product or service. So we can make a summary now that business level strategy is a strategy that help your company to gain a competitive advantage, to have an economic value rather than other competitors, by make a cost leadership by trying to make your cost to be at lower level than other competitors, or your product it should be has more economic value or perceived value. So by increasing the perceived value of its product or service, a firm will be able to charge a higher price than it would otherwise. So The higher price can increase a firm revenue and generate competitive advantage. So, a firm attempt to create differences in the relative perceived value of its product or service often are made by altering the objective properties of those product or service. So, if your company are doing their work in a single market or a single industry, so it should make a selection between cost leadership or a product differentiation. Cost leadership is, so it will make main focus on trying to make their cost lower than other competitors, and the product differentiation, it will make their focus on how to make their product has an increased perceived value than other competitors, so it should provide their product and service at a higher price. So this represents an example of product differentiation. For example, Rolex attempts to differentiate it with its watches other than other competitors by focusing more on solid gold cases. Also, Mercedes attempted to differentiate its cars from other competitors by make a more focus on sophisticated engineering and the high performance. Also, Victoria's Secret attempted to differentiate its product other than other competitors by making you to merchandise itself and the way it sell it. So every company can make a product differentiation and to try to provide a more perceived value for their customers other than other competitors. So in this case, it can make their product and provided it at a higher price. You have a different basis for your product differentiation and to make your product to have a perceived value more than other competitors. The first basis is attribute of the product or service a firm sells. So you can make a differentiation for your product by focusing more on the characteristic of your product and service, including product features, product complexity, the timing of a product introduction, and location. The second basis is to focus on the relation between the firm and its customers by focusing on product customization, consumer marketing, and reputation. The third basis is focusing on the link within and between the firms. So in this case, you will focus on the link with other firms, a firm product mix, distribution system, and the level of service and support. The second type of strategies is to depend on co-orbit strategies. If your company would like to gain a competitive advantage by operating in a several market or in a multiple industries. So corporate strategy is a firm theory of how to gain a competitive advantage by operating in a several business. So in this case, you will have a decision about whether you would like to make a vertical integration. And if you'd like to make a vertical integration, often determine whether firm is operating in a single business or an industry or in a multiple business or an industry. And there are other corporate strategies that the company would like to apply when it like to gain a competitive advantage by operating in a several industries or several markets, like strategic alliances, diversification, and merger and acquisition. So now we will go to explain each one of these strategies in more details. The first one is represented by vertical integration. So if your company would like to gain a competitive advantage and is a company operating in a multiple industry or in a multiple markets, the company may select the vertical integration. So if you would like to make a simple expression for a vertical integration, is simply the number of steps in the value chain that a firm accomplishes within its boundaries. So it's represented by a different number of steps in the value chain for each organization. So If the company are more vertically integrated, so it accomplish more stage of the value chain within the boundary than the firms that are less vertically integrated. So if the company are vertically integrated, so it should accomplish more stage of the value chain more than the firms that are less vertically integrated. So the firm may engage in a backward vertical integration. So in backward vertical integration, so the company will be engaged in more stage of the value chain within its boundaries, and those stage bring it closer to the beginning of the value chain and is closer to gaining access to raw materials. So backward, it will put more focus on the suppliers and put more focus on your raw material. So if you'd like to make a more focused or engaging in a backward vertical integration, so your company, it should be try to engage more in more stage of the value chain with its boundary, and those stage bring it closer to the beginning of the value chain. So you will be much closer to the beginning of the value chain and try to be closer to your suppliers and to gaining access to raw materials. So but if you'd like if your company would like to engage in a forward vertical integration, so on forward, you will walk forward. So in this case, your company will incorporate more stage of the value chain within its boundaries. And those stage bring closer to the end of the value chain. So you will be much closer to the end of the value chain. And in this case, you will be closer to interacting with your final customers. So now we should make a summary between both backward and forward. First of all, vertical integration is a type of your corporate strategy, and you can apply it when your company would like to gain a competitive advantage in a different industries or in a different market. Okay, so you have two types of vertical integration. The first one is the backward, and the second one is a forward vertical integration. If you'd like to make a brief summary for the backward integration, so you should know that your company must engage in more stage of value chain and this stage should bring you to be much closer to the beginning of the value chain. So you should be much closer to the beginning of the value chain. So in this case, you will be much closer to your supplier. So you will be closer to the raw materials. But if you'd like to express forward vertical integration, in this case, you will incorporate more stage of the value chain within its boundaries, and those stages bring it closer to the end of the value chain. So you will be much closer to the end. In this case, you will be closer interacting directly with your customer. So this part is represented very important part, and you should focus on it mainly, and you should be able to differentiate between both terms, what we mean by backward and forward vertical integration. Put this point into your consideration. Then let's make a summary for you. Vertical integration is defined as the number of stages in an industry value chain that a firm has brought within its boundaries. For forward integration, so you will move forward. So in this case, you will be closer to your customers. But backward vertical integration bring a firm closer to the source of its raw material. So you will be walk back, not forward. So back, you will be closer to the beginning of your value chain. So you will be closer to your suppliers and will be closer to your raw materials. But for forward, you will walk forward. So in this case, you will be closer much to your customers. You will be closer much to the end of your value chain. But for backward, you will be closer much to the beginning of your value chain. The second type of corporate strategies is diversification. And at the beginning of the lecture, I give you a brief discussion about the diversification. And somehow the company would like to implement a corporate diversification strategy when it operates in a multiple industry or in a multiple markets. So when a firm operates in a multiple industry, so it can implement a product diversification strategy. And if a company operates in a multiple geographic market, so in this case, it's implementing a geographic market diversification strategy. And when a firm applying both type of diversification, multiple product and the multiple geographic, in this case, it will be known as product market diversification strategy. So here you have three types of diversification. The first one is a multiple industry product diversification strategy. So you should make a diversification according to your product. And if you'd like to apply or operate in a multiple geographic market, in this case, it will be known as a geographic market diversification strategy. And if you'd firm like to implement both type of diversification, product diversification and geographic market diversification strategy. In this case, it will be known as product market diversification strategy. The third type of corporate strategies is a strategic alliance. And we should know that a strategic alliance occurs when two or more independent organizations cooperate for the developing and the manufacturing or selling a product or service. And the strategic alliance, it can take three broad categories. The first one is non-equity alliance. And in non-equity alliance, there is a cooperation occurs between firms that agree to work together to develop, manufacturing, or sell their product and service, but they don't take equity position in each other. So in this case, for solving the problem for non-equity, they form an independent organizational unit to manage their cooperative effort. This represents an example of non-equity strategic alliance. The first example represented by a license agreement. When a firm allow others to use its brand name to sell product. The second example of non-equity strategic alliance, supply agreement, where one firm agreed to supply other. And the third example is the distribution agreement, when one firm agreed to distribute the product of others. So this represented an example, different example of non-equity strategic alliance. So if you'd like to put a definition for a strategic alliance, it will be happen when two or more independent organizations cooperate together for making a development or manufacturing or selling the product or a service. The first form it take strategic alliance is non-equity alliance, and the different firms are agreed to make a cooperation together but not take equity position. And for solving this problem, they form an independent organizational unit to manage their cooperative effort. And I give you different examples of non-equity strategies such as licensing agreement, supply agreement, and distribution agreement. And you should know the definition of each one. This figure represents the different type of strategic alliance. The first one, as we have said, non-equity alliance, and represented by the cooperation between firms is managed directly through contract without cross-equity holding or an independent firm being created. So all of the three types represented by the cooperation between firms. But in this case, the cooperation is managed directly through contract. So without cross-equity holding, and in this case there is non-equity. So in this case, an independent firm being created to solve the problem for non-equity. The second type is the joint venture, and in this case represented by cooperation between firms, and the cooperation between the firm form an independent firm in which they invest. And joint venture is a business arrangement in which two or more parties agree to make pool their resources together for the purpose for accomplishing a specific task. and this task may be a new project or a new business activity, and so on. So in joint venture, there it will occur cooperating between firms, and the cooperating firms form an independent firm in which they invest, and they make their investment for making a new project or making a new business activity. And in joint venture also, each of the participants is responsible for the profit, losses, and the cost. And also the venture has its own entity separate from the participant or participant other business interests. The third type is the equity alliance, and the equity alliance occurs when company make a purchase for equity in another business, and this is represented by partial acquisition. And it may be happen when each business purchase equity in each other, and in this case it will be represented by cross equity transaction. So after we say this slide, we can conclude that there are three types of strategic alliance. The first one is the non-equity alliance, and this happens according to the cooperation between firms, and it takes the place of non-equity. And to solve the problem of non-equity, there is an independent unit. It will be formed to manage the cross equity holding. And the second type is the equity alliance, and at equity alliance occurs when company purchases equity in another business, and it's a cooperative contract are supplemented by equity and investment by one partner in the other partner. And the last one is a joint venture, and the joint venture is a cooperating firm form an independent firm in which they invest, and as we have said before, that is a business arrangement in which two or more parties agree to pool their resource for the purpose for accomplishing a specific task. Here, merge and acquisition. If a firm engage in acquisition when it purchases a second firm. So if a firm make a purchase for a second firm, so in this case it will be an acquisition. And an acquired firm can purchase all of the target firm asset. It can purchase a majority of those assets greater than 51%, or it can purchase a controlling share of those assets. So if the company make a purchase for another company, or so in this case it will be an acquisition. There are two types of acquisition. The first one is a friendly acquisition. Occurs when the management of the target firm wants the firm to be acquired. So in this case, if the company of the target firm likes the other company to purchase it, so in this case it will be friendly acquisition. But unfriendly acquisition occur when the management of the target firm doesn't want the firm to be acquired. So you have two types of acquisition. It may be friendly and unfriendly. To determine, we can determine friendly or unfriendly according to the situation of management of the target firm. If the management of the target firm wants the firm to purchase it or to acquire it, in this case it will be friendly. But if the management of the target firm doesn't want the firm to be acquired, in this case it will be unfriendly acquisition. Some unfriendly acquisition are also known as hostile takeover, and some acquisition are accomplished through direct negotiation between an acquiring firm manager and the manager of a target firm. When we talk about merge, so when the asset of two similar sized firms are combined together, in this case this transaction is called a merge. So you should take into your consideration when the asset of two similar sized firms make a combination or for their asset. In this case, it will be a merge. Merge can be accomplished in many of the same ways as acquisition. It may be using cash or stock to purchase a percentage of another firm asset. And typically, however, merge will not be unfriendly. In a merge, one firm purchases some percentage of a second firm asset, while the second firm purchases some percentage of the first firm asset. So we should now make a differentiation or a comparison between what we mean by acquisition and what we mean by merge. Acquisition, one firm purchase another firm, totally purchase it, and it may be friendly or unfriendly acquisition. But in merge, one firm purchases some percentage of the second firm asset, and the second firm also purchases some percentage of the first firm asset. So the first one should purchase the percentage of the second one, and the second one should purchase a percentage of the first one. Okay? So before you determine which strategy you should select, you should first know if your company would like to gain a competitive advantage in a single industry or a single market, or if you'd like to gain your company would like to gain a competitive advantage in a different industry or a different market. So if you'd like to apply a business strategy, you will have two options. The first one is a cost leadership, and the second one, product differentiation. But for the corporate, you have a multiple choice. You can select from it a vertical integration, backward or a forward integration. Or if you'd like to make a selection between diversification or merger and acquisition. Now I'd like to show you how the different companies try to apply SWOT analysis. First, the SWOT analysis for PepsiCo. It shows you the strengths and weaknesses and threats and opportunities. Here, as we said before, you should make an analysis for your external environment first. You should determine your opportunities and the threats, and after you determining your opportunities and the threats, you should make an analysis for your internal environment by determining your strengths and weaknesses. Here, PepsiCo shows their strengths as a brand equity, a loyal customer base, global presence, strong product portfolio, strong supply and distribution network, and for their weakness, heavy reliance on carbonated drinks, lack of product diversification, and for threat, reducing customer demand, heavy competition, weak product portfolio, and for their opportunities, increasing demand for healthy product, drinks and food, market expansion through partnership and acquisition. So this is an example of how PepsiCo make a SWOT analysis for their company. And this also an example for SWOT analysis for Toyota and how they make an analysis for their external and for internal environment. And as I have said before, that you should make an analysis for your external environment first, and then you should make an analysis for your internal environment. And this also an example of SWOT analysis for Apple company and how they make analysis for their internal and external environment. The next lecture, inshallah, I show you how can you select your strategies according to your SWOT analysis. Here your assignment, please give me an example of how the different companies apply the business level strategies and the corporate level strategies. I'd like you to give me an example for a company that apply, for example, cost leadership, and another company that apply product differentiation, and another company that apply a diversification or a merger or acquisition according to the group that you have constitute. Please work in a 3 different group, and I will take your assignment on our WhatsApp group. If you have any comment or if you need anything to be more clarified much, please don't hesitate to contact with me on our WhatsApp group. See you next week inshallah. Stay home and stay safe. Goodbye.